Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Motivating Monday. This Monday, we have an exciting night planned. We have some powerful speakers. For those who are listening on the podcast, don't forget, we do this Motivating Monday every Monday, and we feature local and national people, sometimes celebrities. Everybody's a celebrity, so figures. And the goal really is just to put some positive energy on your mind in the room. And tonight we have the King, Richard McClearn. He'll be speaking with us. Up first is a woman who does not need any introduction in Baltimore. As mayor, if there was a title of mayor who loved the city, who loves the city most, I think hands down, Sheila Dixon would hold that crown. We've been blessed to have elected, I believe we're the only city that's elected 3 African-American women as mayor. Again, like last week, we had our special guest last week, this woman is a fighter. She is a fighter. For me, I might be biased because I happen to be on the #1 radio station, on the #1 morning radio show at a time when she was the mayor, and we did some amazing things during that time. The city felt special during that time. And again, I always was just so proud because I felt like she represented Baltimore to the fullest and still does. I'm not going to talk long because she's been waiting, and I wanted to get up here and do her thing. Give her a nice round of applause as she comes to the stage. Former Mayor Sheila Dixon is in the building. And I'm excited because, Mayor Dixon almost is legendary. And now I get a chance to finally hear her side of the story from a standpoint of who you are. So basically, Mayor, what kind of this turned into, and Richard, this is for you too, is really just sharing, like we know you as Mayor Sheila Dixon, but we don't know how it started. We don't know, where you came from, what you've been through. And so this is an opportunity to share that aspect, and then also just bless us with, motivational energy, which is really just your story of overcoming. We know some of the story, but we don't know all the story. So here's that chance to get that. It's not even an interview. You just talk. You just tell us.
I just talk?
Yep.
So, Sheila Dixon, my middle name is Ann, and anybody know Hassan Giordano? He loves to put that Ann in there. But it's interesting because if you spell my name out, Sheila A. Dixon, it was sad. And funny, when I was a child growing up, that's how I felt. I was a middle child growing up in Baltimore, in West Baltimore. I had an older sister, which I still have. I had an older brother who's a year older than me, who's deceased. He is the father of Phil Dixon, who was a great sergeant in the police department, played basketball. Juan Dixon, which later on we found out something differently, but still he was his father. Nicole, and then myself, and then I have a younger brother, Tony Dixon, who lives in California. When he went away to college, he was in Boston, Cleveland, and now he's out in the LA area, outside of LA in Orange County. But growing up here in West Baltimore, I grew up off of Garrison Boulevard on Fairview. If you're familiar with Fairview or Powhatan, that whole area over there. And then my mother bought a house in Ashburton. And as a child growing up, I had a teacher. I went to school 87, and I will never forget this day. I had a teacher, it was a white, older woman at the time, and she would tell the black kids in the class, and this is during the time we had a segregation, that you would amount to nothing. And at that point, I loved working with kids, and I wanted to be a school teacher. So what I did was, of course, we integrated, went to School 69. We got bused at School 69, which was above Garrison Junior High School. I went to Garrison Junior High School. Probably made my first political mistake when I was at Garrison, because at that time, girls had to wear skirts and dresses. You could not wear pants. And my sister was at Forest Park, and my brother was at Forest Park. And we had a sit-in so that we could wear pants. And I always tell kids when I go to visit school, I said that was probably the worst political decision that I made, because all hell broke loose after that when we started wearing pants. And the way I see things now, of course, kids are finally into uniforms or some form of uniforms who are in public school. But my ambition was to be a school teacher. And graduating from Northwestern High School at the time, a lot of my friends went away to school. My parents couldn't really afford to send me to where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to Columbia University in New York because I wanted to be in New York City. But I ended up getting money at Towson State, and also it had a very good early childhood program in child psychology. So I was at Towson, and during that time, if you remember Odell's and what was the other one that was around the corner? The Gatsby, and there was one other one that was on the other side street. Well, a lot of my friends went away, and so I ended up hanging out, going down, partying. I met this guy who was a little older than me, and he did karate with Riley Hawkins and the Avengers. And of course, I fell in love. That's why I said, anytime you're in a relationship, even if something negative is going on, something positive happens. Because karate was actually a saving grace for me. When I was at Towson, during that time, it was a predominantly white institution. It was a real challenge. If it wasn't for Patricia Outlaw, who now is a minister, who was part of the Black Student Union and others at Towson. And my sister also went there, but she had come out before I did. So she always helped to guide me, because she was the oldest, she was the boss. So I finished my degree. The first semester was not good, because I was in love, and my focus was karate and him. But as soon as I saw the grades and got that letter and said, you either bring them grades up or you out of here, well, I did two things. I dumped him, and I focused on my grades, because it was important. I was trying to reach a goal. That's the thing that I try to stress to kids. You got to have plans, you got to have goals, and you have to work towards it. I graduated from Towson. I had to spend an extra semester there. Actually, my first job, because at that time, in the Department of Education, you could hardly get a job. They had an abundance of teachers. So I ended up working in the water department and for the city, and the water bills and everything was on these little index cards, and you had to fill out these cards. And I was like, I cannot do this for so long, filling out index cards at DPW. I finally was student teaching at Stewart Hill Elementary, which is, they call it Washington Village, Pigtown. And it was open space. And I had some really good pre-K and kindergarten teachers who really worked with me to help me to understand what I needed to do as related to the children in my class. And the funny thing was that even in the kindergarten, when parents came to drop their kids off, there were parents that said, if my child gets out of line, you can spank them. Now, technically, you can't spank. Those are the kids you didn't have the issues with. It's the other parents that said, if you put your hand on my child, but let me tell you, I made a mistake so many times and stepped on toes by mistake to get kids straight. But one of the stories I want to share out of that, I had a little girl she was mixed race, because down in that part of Southwest Baltimore, there's a lot of mixed, poor race kids. And she was a phenomenal reader, and she could do math. And I wanted to skip her, but I had an issue with Baltimore City Public Schools. They didn't want to skip her. And I said, well, how am I going to help this child, since she's so smart, to keep moving forward? So I was able to connect with a teacher in the second grade, first and second grade, and they let her go in for reading and math, and then she would come back because of the socialization skills that still needed to develop. And I ended up mentoring that young lady for a number of years. But during that time, and the reason why I got into politics was because of what I saw at that time in Baltimore City Public Schools. If you weren't in a particular sorority or fraternity for Baltimore City Public Schools, you had a challenge in moving up. And because I went to Towson State University, I did not pledge. If I had gone to a Black historic college, I used to party at Morgan, but I didn't pledge because my focus was karate. I worked a job at Recreation and Parks where I taught. I worked in the bookstore. I mean, I had to hustle, you know? That's why I tell my kids, you have 4 years to finish your undergrad, and you're going to graduate debt-free. That's another story down the road. But so I didn't have time to do a lot. But at that time, what I realized is that, again, after I graduated and I started teaching, I also, because at that time, I'll never forget, I think beginning teachers made like $18,000, $16,000 a year. It wasn't enough. I had another part-time job where I worked at St. Bernardine's Head Start, and I worked with parents with their GED to supplement my income. And I lived downtown on Calvert Street. I'll never forget, on the 4th floor in an attic apartment. My rent was $100. I had a sports car, at that time it was called Spitfire, which everybody advised me not to get as a first car because it was a very temperamental car. I mean, it stayed broke more than I could drive the car. But I would ride my bike because I was a biker back then. So I would get around the city on my bike. But in teaching, I began to get involved in my church, Bethel AME Church at the time, where John R. Bryant was the pastor. And a woman from South Africa came to Bethel and joined Bethel to educate us about apartheid in South Africa. And that was really the beginning of my political involvement at that level, because there was legislation that Kwaisi, who was on the city council, introduced to divest money from our investment funds to deal with the apartheid in South Africa. And that's how I met Delegate Pete Rollins, because we became active in a campaign in the 5th District. At that time, it was 3 members per district. And Anthony Robinson, if the name ever rings a bell, he's the one who established the minority program for Parent Mitchell over in D.C. He ran for city council. And I met Pete Rollins, and Pete Rollins taught me how to do phone banking. And it actually was the beginning of really laying the ground to how to run a campaign. And we became very close. At that time, Stephanie was very young. She would help out with her father's campaign. Anthony Robinson lost the election. It was 3 members, and he lost the election, but I gained a lot of knowledge about the political process, etc. While teaching, Pete Rollins called me one day. He was the chair of the Budget and Appropriations for the House of Delegates, the General Assembly, which is a very powerful committee. The governor at that time, Hughes, and it was getting ready to transfer it over to, who was after Hughes? Was it Schaefer? He had established in the Department of Business and Economic Development, an international division. And before that, with my church, we did a lot of traveling. And my first place that I went was Kenya. And we connected with some women and started an import-export business. But when Pete called me about working, because he knew I had been doing some grants for USAID, I had traveled over and had started an import-export business along with teaching, he asked me if I was interested in interviewing to be an international trade specialist with the state of Maryland. And at the time, I loved teaching, but I knew 2 things. One, that the kind of changes that I wanted to make were going to be a little bit more difficult unless I did something different. And so I interviewed, I got the job with the state of Maryland. I worked with the state of Maryland for 17 years. At that time, he also had me be one of his candidates for the Democratic State Central Committee. And I had the opportunity to be a delegate for Jesse Jackson and others. And then when Kwesi ran for Congress and won, his seat became vacant along with Clarence Mitchell's seat. He became a state senator, am I correct, if I have my memory correct? So there were 2 vacant seats, and Agnes Welch was the council person. And most people think you go through an interviewing process to be selected, but when there's a vacancy, they already know who's going to get the seat, but you still go through the process. So when they tell you, oh no, we don't select who it is, blah, 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 that's a lie, they do. And so Agnes already had her 2 people selected, even though I went through the process. It was 2 gentlemen, one a teacher and one was Mr. Page, Delegate Page, who was a council person. And so what I decided at that time, Pete got behind me and some other people and said, well, why don't you run for the seat? So it was 18 of us or more who ran for the 4th district seat. And I'll never forget this. Mayor Dewburns at the time, I ran the same time that Kirk Schmoke ran against Dewburns. The Palmer House, if anybody's familiar with the Palmer House, it used to be in Utah, this dark Italian restaurant. Well, everybody said you had to go meet with Dewburns. So I go into this restaurant, it's dark. I said, what the heck am I in the dark? He's sitting in the back. You know, I'm a petite person. At that time, I was even smaller. He said, little girl, and I didn't take it offensively, you know. That's just how they talk. As long as he ain't say something out of my name, I'm cool. But he said, if you're gonna run for city council, learn city government. He said, the folks in the 4th district, they get up and give these flowery speeches and they don't do nothing in their district. He said, but learn city government because that's how you become effective. And I took him at heart when I won one of the seats. It was myself, Lawrence Bell, and then, of course, Agnes Welch. And I learned city government. I was still working. I ended up getting married and having the first baby born on the city council. A lot of women waited till after their kids get a certain age, but I actually had my daughter while on the city council. And actually for 6 months, she would come with me to the city council because I nursed, and there were days where I did not want to pump. So if I was in a hearing, she would be right there with me. And people would try to figure out, what the heck has she got going on? At that time, you had these little slits in your tops, right? And I slide her in. And I'm right here, and I had the Taxation and Finance Committee. So you have all these white old men coming, dealing with finance issues, and I'm nursing my daughter. It wasn't intentional. I thought she would have slept through the hearing, but if it didn't happen, hey. I nursed her, actually, my daughter, I nursed her for 2 years. But at that time, so then I still was working, both of the jobs, so at that time, even the salary for the city council, and it was actually part-time. It should be changed now to full-time based on what the salary is now versus what it was then. But I was able to juggle multiple things at one time. I would travel overseas. My territory was Africa. I had the Caribbean and I had Canada. And so I would take companies, take companies on trade missions, different places in Africa. I opened up the first office in South Africa under the International Division, and that was under Glendenning. We had African-American companies who actually invested and established businesses in South Africa as a result of going over there. So I've been blessed to have a lot of experiences. That's why when I became city council president, of course, as I said, I had to learn the agencies, I had to learn city government, I had to learn the budget, I had to figure out, what some of the challenges were and what kind of changes could we make. And I did all of this because, and I tried to leave Baltimore. I wanted out of Baltimore. First, when I couldn't go away to college, But secondly, I signed up for the Peace Corps. And at that time, it was extremely popular to be in the Peace Corps and had a waiting list. And I couldn't afford to be sitting around waiting. And third, I had applied because I had a minor in psychology. I applied for a job at the Boston Children's Hospital because I had a best friend that lived in Boston. And they hired me, and I was literally in my mother's basement packing up boxes, getting ready to leave Baltimore. And I realized when I weighed what it would cost to go to Boston or stay here and what my salaries would be, that I looked at the financial impact that would have on me, and I actually called and turned the job down. I guess that was meant to be. But, you know, so I've been here. I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world. I've had the opportunity to, you know, really make inroads in ways. But I love this city. I'm committed to Baltimore. I had the opportunity. I could leave the city. I could move to the counties, you know, or move down to Florida where it's warm. I don't know about Florida these days, but particularly with the governor they had down in Florida. But, you know, so I've raised my children here. I have two. I had my daughter at 35. I waited because early in life I did not want children. I never thought I was going to have children until one day some light went off in my head and said, you know what, I think it might be a good idea. And my son, who's 5 years younger than my daughter, I had him at 40. But, you know, their father and myself, we try to lay a foundation for them so that they can discover their gifts from God. And I told both of them, undergrad, 4 years, and my daughter she's the one that ended up in New York. If you, at a private college, if you graduate in 4 years, you will graduate debt-free. I said it to my son now. My son, different story. He's a great human being. I love him. He was my angel when I was going through the challenges because my daughter was away at college when I went through what I went through, and he was there. His school was watching over him, and he was watching over me. And I could not have asked for a better individual. Now, he didn't do the 4-year plan, but he finally graduated last December from Morgan State University with a business degree. And now he's looking at going into either law or business. And he actually was part of Westmore's transition and campaign, and he's working for the Westmore administration. But they're good people, and so I just try to really strive to try to share my story along with their stories, along with my beliefs and philosophy to other young people. I went to Northwestern High School, and you know, if you're a Baltimorean, the first thing you ask is, well, what high school did you go to? Not necessarily what college, but what high school. And I ended up doing the last graduation at Northwestern. Now, I have to say this. The Jewish community, and they keep saying it's not true, but it is, they wanted Northwestern closed. It did get kind of off the chain, but still, we came up with a plan, the alumni, to create a whole international school modeled after a program in New Orleans and Connecticut. Put a lot of work into it, went to visit the different schools, and during the campaign against Elizabeth Embry, who's now a delegate, and Catherine Pugh and myself, we had a meeting with the rabbis. And at that meeting, they asked a series of questions. And one of the questions is, what's your position on Northwestern High School? And I told them, I'm not going to say something to you just to get your vote. I said, I want Northwestern to stay open. And this is why, and this is what we've done. And we all had a commitment from many of because not only did we go through so many mayors, we also went through a lot of school CEOs. So when I won, but I didn't win, and y'all can read between the lines, 2 weeks after the election, what happened to Northwestern? They closed it. But at that graduation, it was off the chain. When I say off the chain, I don't know if y'all remember back in the day, if you graduated from any school in Baltimore, we used to have ours at the Civic Center because you had over 1,000 students. Well, they had like about 150 seniors. It was loud. It was crazy. You know how they say, wait till the kids come across and then applaud? Well, forget that. Or stay in your seat and don't come up and take a picture. I mean, it was crazy. I literally had a headache when I left there. And when I left there, I saw this young man. He had a shirt and tie. And I stopped him. I said, because he had a shirt and tie on. I said, what are your plans? So he looked at me dumbfounded. I don't have no plans. What do you mean? You graduated from high school and you have any plans? I said, well, what do you want to do? He says, I like construction. I said, this is your lucky day. I work with contractors. Give me your resume. He said, I don't have a resume. I said, how do you graduate with no resume, no plan? But he went back. He took the initiative and went back to school the next day and had his advisor help him put a resume together. He was not the brightest young man. His father was raising him in Park Heights. His mother wasn't in his life. She was on drugs. He went back, and so I called some of our companies to say, give this young man an interview. And if he does well, maybe you can give him an internship. Well, one of the companies did interview him. Well, several did, but one particular interviewed him and said to him, I will give you an internship, but you have to go through the pre-apprenticeship program called Jumpstart. He went through Jumpstart. He ended up working for one of the contractors who helped to build the first new school, which is over in, I forgot the name of the school, but it was over in Patterson Park area. He helped to build that school. And only because I had a shirt and tie on did I stop and acknowledge it. And I'm telling you, literally, I had a headache. I had a really bad headache because I just was ready to take the mic from the principal to tell folks, why don't we respect each other? But my point in all of this is, I know our kids have the potential, and we've got to do everything in our power to work with them and do what we can do to help them. And I stayed in contact with him because he had another part-time job. He was saving his money, but he helped to build several schools in this city. And so I don't know what else to say, but I will just tell you this as it relates to my situation and what happened. People think that what I went through was one thing, but it really wasn't that. It was something else. When I became city council president and we were doing TIFs and pilots, and TIFs and pilots is where you get a deferred tax on your property over a period of time. And it's not like we're writing a check, because we're not, but you're able to not have to pay 5.5 cents per square mile on or square footage on your taxes. So you get a reduction of it, which helps you to leverage it. And Martin O'Malley was the mayor, and because I chaired the Board of Estimates, the Baltimore Development Corporation knew to not bring me a plan unless they had an equity partner. We couldn't require it, but they knew that what my mandate was. I want them to have a black equity partner. There were certain things that they had to have in their proposal. And if not, then I was going to sit on it. That was one of the powers that the city council president had, where you could defer it. And over a certain time period, the administration, whomever it is, they're not going to like that because you want to get it through at a certain time. Now, that power over the last year and a half under this new administration, which I was like, why would you do this? Bill Henry got rid of it, and now they only have one deferral that they can do between Bill Henry once or Nick. At the time when I was mayor and other mayors, the council president could defer it, and you get frustrated until you could negotiate. And so there are a lot of people in the city who were doing business who did not like the fact that I was making that as a requirement. So when you look at Harbor East, a lot of that development, if you look at the Marriott waterfront, Mr. Padarakis, they call him the bread man, H&H Bakery, which H&H Development, they had to have an African-American partner for that project at the Inner Harbor at the Marriott. And actually, he had a partner in Minnesota or Michigan, somewhere Midwest. Actually, it was a black partner who had a bread business who ended up partnering with him. But there was also some local developers who were a part of a lot of some of these developments that are currently developed in downtown Baltimore. The Zenith had a black partner. Spinnaker, what is it called? Spinnaker Bay, if it's still under the same structure. So all of that. Now, and folks didn't like that. And so my mistake was not disclosing a relationship that I had. Not that I voted for things to favor that person, because I didn't. That's why they didn't bring those things before the court system initially, because they knew that it wouldn't happen, which is a whole nother story. Actually, there's a gentleman who's doing a documentary, and I guess if he ever finds all the money, a lot of information will come out. I need to write a book. I would need guidance, to be honest with you. I know, but I mean, one person I know who's a librarian, she said just every night, I started taking notes in a journal. She said, just take a conversation with yourself. You got to be motivated to do that. I just got to find a ghostwriter who's not ridiculous in price.
We could put together a team, right? Put together a team that I mean, come on.
But it'll happen. I did do a little piece. Salima Salah Marriott just released a book during COVID, and she had a series of women who were part of her book. And so there's a little blurb, and it gives you a little bit a sense of who I am. Last but not least, I'm dressed like this because Monday morning I go to my trainer. My office is on Maryland Avenue. I left Maryland Avenue to come over here. Working out for me is a stress release. I don't care what I have to do. When I was in public office, my scheduler at the time, she knew if she didn't schedule my workout, then I would blow a meeting. And there are times where she didn't put it on my schedule, I ended up blowing a meeting. That's been a part of my life. I try to, and this is one of the things when I established cleaner, greener, healthier, safer, it wasn't buzzwords, it was looking at this city and the people in this city and how we can begin to connect to each other in multiple ways. 1, cleaning up the city. 2, making the city safer. 3, making the city healthier. Because if you think about it, and this is something I said to Hopkins, University of Maryland, Mercy, we have renowned hospitals around this city. But if you look at the statistics of things and challenges that we face as a people and a race, it's not good. When we talk about high blood pressure, diabetes, I mean, I can go down, heart disease. Do you know that black women in particular, every 38 seconds, because we have an oncologist who's a member of our church, dies from heart disease. And in women, it's harder to detect than in men. So when I talk about all of that, I share it only because it's important for us to get a handle on our health. You know, one of the things that I'm a member of the Merit Athletic Club, and one of the things we discuss in the locker room, because there's a lot of people from Hopkins and stuff that used to come before COVID, now a lot of people have stopped, was in our communities, we tend to hide things from each other and not share the history of diseases and other illnesses that run in our family. And it's important to make sure your children know about those diseases, and yourself, so that you can prevent things from happening. So I know that my aunt had breast cancer. My sister had breast cancer. So what do? Go get my mammograms and other things I have to do. Colon cancer runs on my father's side of the family. At a certain age, you get your colonoscopy. You know, I mean, I can go down the road, but I shared those things with my kids and said, you have to track these things. You have to let your doctors know that these things run in your family. Obesity. you know? Doesn't matter. You know, sometimes it's hard for people. During COVID, I lost weight because I was determined not to gain weight. So my trainer, Chauncey, he on System Street, he took Mission Fit, the gym, and brought it out in the park. And we were in that park, rain, snow, 90 degrees. He bought the equipment and we worked out. And we kept some of the efforts going. Because it deals with stress no matter, you know, what you have going on. So I'm a real advocate for that. And I've made that a part of my lifestyle. So at this point in my life, I think it's important to be true to myself and not allow individuals to determine or dictate who you are or who they think you are. And so, I just try to share the truth with folks and try to be real. And everybody has a perception of who we are or what you are, or who they think you are, but people don't really know. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert, and I'm a shy person. Being in public office, I know that's probably hard to believe. I love black movies, but I love comedies. My main stories right now are Ghost 2, Season 3, Godfather of Harlem. What's the one on, I don't know if it's HBO or Prime, The Women in Harlem, The Sisters of Harlem. This is their second season. It's these young women. Is it just called Harlem? Yeah, Harlem. Yeah. What was the show with on OWN? Queen Sugar. Oh my gosh, I didn't want that to end. I have so many channels on my cable, and it's only certain channels I watch. BET. I have to say this, during the holiday, I like Hallmark and Life Channel. But this year it was a little weak. They actually have more blacks on there now, but it's a little, but I'm not, now, I'm going to tell you what I watched Saturday night with my friend. We watched The Cocaine Bear. Oh my gosh. Has anybody seen that? Oh my good, it's a true story. Now I'm gonna go back and watch the documentary. It is so gross, but you can't stop watching it. I was like, it's a true story. They have a documentary and you can watch the movie. Now we didn't watch the documentary, we watched the movie. But it's gross, but it's funny, and it's like I can't watch it anymore. Then you keep watching it. Yeah. And what's the one that comes on Thursday? It's the second season for Beverly Hills. Fresh Prince. Yeah. I like black shows. I have not been back to the movies. So I really haven't gone back to the movies because during COVID, my daughter, who never got COVID, and lives in a one-bedroom apartment with her husband, and he got it. I think Adrian got it once, maybe. She was extremely obsessed with cleaning and she was like, never got it. So they would come down to Baltimore for a month and stay at my house so they could have the yard and all of that. But when I got COVID, one time, the time that I got COVID, even though I had my shots, it was like a cold and I was tired. She was staying at my home, her and her husband. It was the month of August. I couldn't even come home. And then when I came home the second week, after my doctor said it was cool, I was okay, she made me stay in my room. Seriously. I'm serious. So I was like, I see why you never got it, but she made me stay in my house, in my room. But yeah, so I don't know what more I can say. Y'all got a snapshot of who I am.
Give it up for Sheila Dixon. We know who she is. I didn't say it at the start, but again, the Motivating Monday it's a safe space, so you didn't even need to hear that. But of course, again, how rare is it that we get a chance? This is the first time I ever heard. Who knew all this stuff? Because we do. We see you. We think we know you. I think we got pretty close over the years. But I had no idea about all that. The kids and everything else. But
concerts. I was at the pre-opening of the new arena. I'm not going to remember the name of it. Parents, and a lot of those programs are gone. We also have to take some personal responsibility for ourselves and our family and what our environment looks like. In some neighborhoods where we have a lot of vacant properties, people try to figure out. I think my mic is off. People try to figure out about all the vacant properties. This doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot. Actually, the vacant property issue happened way back during D'Alessandro when we had the riots, and then Schaefer, and because his focus was the Inner Harbor, and even though he was a community mayor, his focus was in communities. Because if it was in communities, then Emerson Village would not have looked like it did. Even though he wasn't living there, he still had the property there with his mother. So we've got to look at some neighborhoods, and we got to rethink some of our communities. We're not going to renovate every vacant property that you see. We need, in some areas, particularly Southwest, where there's industrial space, we need to clear away some of those areas. Just blow it up and start over with green space and make some more light manufacturing and industrial space. And rethink, just like when Stadium Place was done, we need to create more senior villages, areas in certain communities. Actually, part of our Cleaner Greener, we actually reestablished it. And this is part of the challenge when you're in public office. It doesn't matter if somebody reestablishes something or establishes an initiative. You assess it to determine, is this helpful? Did we see some benefits in this? And you build on it. Because ultimately, whoever's there is going to get the credit for it. So, that's something that we do need to bring back and provide some incentives in that process. No, I agree. We did a whole thing in those neighborhoods, we also greened them up where if you didn't have grass, we would bring and plant trees and take real big flower pots and put plants in them in the area. Fine. So recreation centers, some of them did open up. Now, when some of the new schools were built, the question is, why didn't they build the rec center? Remember how this rec center was part of the school? In a lot of these new schools, the principals didn't want the rec centers to be a part of the school. One of the things that we did, looking at certain neighborhoods where rec centers weren't open, we created community schools where we renovated the pools. Because back when I was in high school, if you didn't know how to swim, you didn't graduate. So we renovated Northwestern's pool, Emerson's pool, Douglas, I think we did something, and we opened it up to create activity, not just swimming, but other things, so making the school part of that center if there wasn't a rec center. But a lot of rec centers are open, but the question now is who's using them? And the other question is, you have to go online and register. Well, everybody doesn't have access to go online and register. So you have to give people other alternatives, not just to go online. There's a young lady, and I won't name her, who is a dancer, did the line dancing, the hand dancing. She was working at one of the rec centers, one of the new renovated rec centers. She said nobody was coming in there. And when she sent the word out about that, she lost her job. But then you also have to look at what is it that young people want to have in the centers today. Is there a game room? Is there a recording studio? You know, back in the day, you know, of course people want to do the sports and other things, but there are other things that young people have interest in today.
You know, man, thank you so much for sharing. Reminds me where Superman was doing the same thing, so thank you. But my question is, how do we change the power structure? You like Marion Barry and then Maynard Jackson. How do we change that?
So Maynard Jackson had a benefit, and actually the city used to own the airport in Baltimore, but because of being able not to be able to keep it, to be able to afford to keep it up, of course we lost the airport. But Maynard Jackson had the airport in Atlanta. When I talk about these development projects happening and having equity investors in it, that should have continued. We ain't had no white mayor. Every black mayor after me, I don't care, should have kept that effort. They knew about it, should have kept that going, despite the fact that others didn't want it. They should, because that way, that equity here, I'm just using this as an example. Otis Warren built the first federal building downtown as a developer. Otis got it. He understood it. Now his son, OT, has taken over his business. So when you make that investment, then you pass it down. But that's not happening. Same thing I work with contractors. And we have more black general contractors now, but to get the kind of opportunities that the other ones are getting, I mean, you talk about politics and regular government, man, in the construction industry, that's something else. Now, hopefully, we have a black governor. He's made it clear he wants to see more happen. And those of us who are in this arena really need to just share with him that in order to make that happen, you've got to not only make change at the top, but the middle levels have to be changed. Because if not, those people are going to do business as usual. One of the things that the county exec of Baltimore County did, he created a procurement commission. And during COVID, it was a 2-year commission. I sat on that commission. It was 12 of us. We weren't being paid to change his structure because of the old boy system in Baltimore County. And so now you start to see things happening and changing there in those areas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you. And thank you for this being here. I got two more questions. One thing is that if you run for mayor again, Ms. Dixon, one of my issues has always been we need to have a citizens group to witness the separation process of guns and drugs that's confiscated by the police. It's $1 billion industry with no oversight. Don't make no sense, irregardless of how corrupt the police is.
No, you're right. And you know what? But on that point, though, what's funny is, and I don't know if I heard something on the news last night, or I know I dreamt something about burning that. And you've been at that for a long time.
Right. So my other point is this. Explain to people why our water bill is 4 or 5 times higher than when we used to pay water.
With Baltimore County, the issue is that the county supplements. Now, they get ready to get away from supplement, but they supplement, and their billing is a little different than ours. Our sewer and everything is together. That's a good question. Whomever initiated this new meter system, and you do your homework, I ain't gonna throw nobody under the bus, but whoever initiated that new meter system is what's causing what we're facing today. And the last 3 mayors did nothing to fix it. And DPW right now is so dysfunctional that it's worse. I had a flood at my home. My pipes, the Friday before Christmas when we had that weather, cold weather, and I was leaving town the next day, the pipes in my home burst. And it was raining in my house. I mean, it was bad. Luckily, my friend didn't go to Miami like he normally visits grandkids, because if he hadn't been there, who knows how long it would have been flooding in my home. And I got my water bill, so you know it was an arm and a leg because of all the water that was in there. But we need to fix that right away. I agree wholeheartedly. But that new system that we have, somebody needs to be dealt with creating those new meters in there.
Yes, Eartha.
I don't know the details of it, but there's something that's missing from what people. How old are you?
I'm 24 years of age.
Okay. So one good way is is to get involved in somebody's campaign, because that's a really good tool learning. I know my son, he working on my campaigns, he had to get out there and knock on doors and everything, but he had a different perspective in the West Moore's campaign, and actually had a lot of knowledge as a result. So he had a good understanding about dealing with the personalities in that campaign. And when people that were inexperienced, he was able to step up and take on some leadership. So I always encourage young people to get involved in a campaign, or, volunteer when you can for a candidate, or or work for, get into politics by working in government, not necessarily if it's at the local level or the state level, and that way you can get some experience.
Awesome. You have a question, sir? Mm-hmm.
So, the first thing is, if you have an idea to take over one of those buildings, exploring a particular project, gotta put together a plan. Gotta have a plan. And you have to be able to, there are resources out here that now will even more, that will support individuals in establishing a business. But you gotta have a business plan. And you have to go to different resources to help you, like the Small Business Resource Center will help you to put a plan together if you saw a particular property. There is a developer out of Chicago. He used to be with General Growth. I met him when he helped develop the Lanier. He developed the Mondawmin when General Growth took over with the Targets and everything. He now has a team, and they are looking at neighborhoods and buying up, like he bought Warbrook Junction. And so they're in the process of upgrading and renovating it. They're now working on Edmondson Village Shopping Center. Finally, the owner wants to sell it. So he's looking at, and he also has a crowd investment where people can invest in the shopping center, put money in it, $50, $100, $1,000, several thousands of dollars. So he's in the process of looking at deteriorating neighborhoods and areas, and then allowing people within the community to invest, as well as improve on the shopping center. Like he wants to clear away, like I live over off of Edmondson on Winans Way, and he wants to clear away that it's like a 2-level at Edmondson Village Shopping Center. He wants to clear that away, put some restaurants in the front area, do something with the properties that are in the back, and get people to invest in it. And so he's been really working towards that. There's one hang up, there's a covenant that Emerson Village was created in 1949, where people who lived in Emerson Village had to be white. Now, that's changed, but still, in the covenant, it's still worded. So he's trying to get the covenant amended. But the problem is that people who live in Emerson Village, off behind the shopping center, some don't realize that there is a covenant. Like some neighborhoods, Northwood has a covenant. But those people have an active community a covenant association. There's several covenants in the city. And so he's trying to get people to educate them about the covenant, amend the Negro part out of it, along with some zoning pieces, so he can get that shopping center developed.
Okay, we're gonna have to let our mayor go.
Yeah, y'all got more speakers, and I
Yeah.
know they've been here before me.
It's so give it up for Sheila Dixon, y'all.
I
Give it up.
appreciate
We'll have to have her back.
Yeah, I'll come back, as long as you start on time.
You know what? What we'll do is, next time we'll start with the questions.
Okay.
Because we now have the story. So once again, give it up as she
Thank you.
departs the stage,
Thank you.
everybody. That was awesome. It gets better each Monday. Tell your friends, everybody. And we're keeping the party going. Give it up as she goes, yes. Again, thanks to everybody for coming out supporting Motivational Monday. We are actually growing each week. People are sharing their stories. We're engaged. It kind of ends up being feels like a family feel, but at the same time you learn something. And a lot of times these people that we see on television or that we see in our communities, we don't know their stories. So it's great to hear their stories. And so coming to the stage. Now, it's so interesting. You never know how life works. Now, ironically, way before Motivating Monday, you saw Big Rick motivating. Are you still doing your message, Rick? Motivating online. I think during COVID, you got many of us through COVID with your motivational message. Now I'm going to the official stuff. Now, he is the CEO of the McClearn Group. He's a wealth builder. He's a keynote speaker. He's also a heck of a promoter. He's one of those guys, when you say somebody has a big presence, one of those guys that is a mover and a shaker. He's your big brother. Like I said, I never forget during COVID, we didn't know what to do. Big Rick started doing a motivational message, and I found myself looking forward to it. And also, I even started reinventing. You sparked me to start doing my message. I saw you do your message. You made me do my message. And so, here to share with a story, come to the stage, share his story and how he got where he is. Give it up for Big Rick in the building, y'all. Richard McClearn, CEO. I'm curious now. I'm curious about your story, sir. Here, you take this mic.
Thank you. I guess a lot of people are going to know something they probably didn't know about me. I am Big Rick. My real name is Richard McClearn. I am from a small town called Newburgh, New York. That's up on the Hudson. We call it the fifth borough. My wife, the sixth borough. My wife doesn't believe that because she's from Brooklyn. She said there's no other borough but the five in the city, but we call it the sixth borough. I came here in 1995. I came here as an IT specialist. I was selling what they call check reader machines to the city of Baltimore, to the state of Maryland for a company called Unisys. And we had the big contracts, and I was the big sales guy. But one of the things that struck me immediately when I came to Maryland was the black people that were in charge. And at that time, it was Kurt Smoke. And that's right now to this day, we're best of friends because he gave me my first contract, and I'll get back to that later. But I met him when I was working for Unisys. My father and mother, Billy and Sylvester McClearn, were big, just like me. I have 5 brothers and 1 sister. I'm probably the average height is me, 6'5". My brother Mike played for the Washington Redskins. My other brothers we all played sports. We all did well in New York. But one thing my folks decided to do when we were young is show us how to be entrepreneurs. And the way they did that is by opening clothing stores for us because they had to go to New York City, which we're 60 miles from New York City, to buy big clothes for big and tall folks. So what they did is bring big and tall to Newburgh, New York, and Middletown, and Poughkeepsie, New York. And from that, we worked in the clothing stores all those years through junior high and high school. And doing that, we developed entrepreneurship, doing our own thing, making our own timetables, understanding accounting, understanding cost versus sale, and etc. We all went to school. All the boys went to school on sports scholarships. I went to school of basketball.
I was a hell of a basketball player at one time, but not now. And we learned a lot during those times. But I can tell you, when I came to Maryland, let me back up. So when I was in Buffalo, New York, I went to Buff State, is where I went to school at Buff State in Buffalo, New York. And what I did, I joined a company called Unisys, and it's a white organization, very big. I went up the ranks really quick. All the trips, everything I went, I always hit my quota, my numbers. And they said, hey, we got a new market we're going into. We lost the rep, now a new market. We lost the rep. We want you to go down to Baltimore. I'm like, Baltimore? I don't want to go to Baltimore. I didn't know nothing about Baltimore. Really didn't know anything about HBCUs or anything. If you know anything about New York, for the most part, they understand. They heard about Morgan. They heard about some of your HBCUs, but we never really attended them. We never saw them up close and personal. So I came down to visit. And when I came down to visit, I immediately knew I was in the right place. I can tell you that I couldn't even get home fast enough, and I drove down. I couldn't get home fast enough. Let's go. We're getting out of here. We're going to Baltimore because of all the blackness I saw, all the blackness I felt. Now, at this time, I was in Rochester, New York. Now, Rochester, New York is a very black town, but this is a black town. Really, you're talking 75, 80% here as far as I'm concerned. And in Rochester, you're talking about 45 or 40%. And that's a big difference. But then on top of that, there was wealth here. There was good incomes here. There was good money here. So I saw, in the long run, that come down here with Unisys. When I came down with Unisys in 1995, I lasted with Unisys 3 years. I was their top performer. Within 3 years, I opened my own firm doing IT. So it's kind of funny. Sheila was here. I wish she was still here because she laughed. When you walk around the city today and it says, welcome to Baltimore City Wi-Fi, that's mine.
Wait a minute.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. That's what I started. So when you go to Baltimore City Public Schools and you walk to their new schools and their old schools, the 21st century and the old schools, all that infrastructure is me. That Wi-Fi, that connection, that's happening. That's why I started this business. I started in computer technology. And basically infrastructure is my belly leg. I started off with Dell at the time, selling Dell. But infrastructure was my thing. And right now, Baltimore City Public Schools is probably my number 3 account. Baltimore City is probably my number 4th account. The University of Maryland is one of my biggest accounts. But every time you walk in that campus, it says, welcome to the University of Maryland Wi-Fi. You want to join? You're joining our network that we put together for them. And it's funny how things work because that's how I started. And I've always been an entrepreneur, even when I was in college. I was a DJ, sports guy, DJ. That's how I got into promoting. I gave parties when I was in college because even though my mother and father, they did well for themselves. They gave us money and things, but you want to do your own thing when you get to college. So I did DJing and partying, giving parties. So what I decided to do a couple of years ago is open a promotion company called Big Rick Entertainment. I got the McClearn Group, which is doing consulting. I got Strength, Courage, and Wisdom, which is doing the motivation, online, and podcasting. And I do still work a little bit in the IT industry and still do things. So I say to you that multiple streams of income are important. I want to be wealthy. I don't want to be rich. I've been rich, and I've been poor, and I've been rich again. I've been poor. It's really how it kind of works to a little bit. I share this story on my podcast a lot that I've been through a lot. And I felt like during the COVID time, and I really did this before COVID time, that people were going through things that I was going through, but nobody had the voice to say it. Nobody had the kahunas to go out there and say, hey, I'm depressed. I don't know what to do today. I'm really frustrated. I'm stuck. And what I did with that podcast, which was Strength, Courage, and Wisdom, is talk about things that people didn't want to talk about. More importantly, what our people didn't want to talk about. I talked about marriages. I talked about businesses. I talked about success. I talked about losing. I've lost it more than I've won. But it happened to be the wins were big. So they outweigh the losses, but I lost a lot of times. I can tell you now that I probably opened, in my lifetime now, I'm 64 years old, I probably have opened up, wow, I hate to even say this, maybe 20 different companies. 20 different companies. And I'm proud to say all of them didn't succeed. I'm proud to say that because I learned from every last one of them. Something came out of every last one of them, whether I started with not enough capital, or I thought I could open the door immediately and make money. Didn't want to have the time and the patience to wait. Follow my plan. I tried to make it move faster. Or I hired the wrong people. And they stole. I can go on and on and on, but that's the experience. And I'm happy I had that experience, because if I didn't have that experience, I think I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be able to talk about this. So when you see Big Rick in the street, the Big Rick is a persona, it's a big thing, it's cool, I'm a big guy. That's really where it came from. It came from nothing else but just being big. This big guy. I was a lot bigger at one time until I met my wife. She slimmed me down. And I want to thank my wife, man. My wife is something else, man. I got to say that. Yeah. I'm going to tell you another thing, man. Get you a good partner. I'm going to tell you that. Mark, you have a great one, too. I love her. A good partner make wonders for you, man. Make you do things that you never thought you could do. So like I hypothetically just told you about 4 companies that I actually own today, but we own them. I owned it before I married it, but we own them now. And we have a list of 20 different ideas / companies, at least 15 of them, I think, that we want to do together moving forward. That's partnership. You need help. You need complementary. You need someone to push you, somebody to put something in your ear, somebody to talk differently than you do. She is totally the opposite of me. I'm the now guy. She says, no, I'm the plan girl. We're going to plan it. I've opened businesses before without a dollar in the bank, but just an idea. But now I have an idea, and I wait a little bit, and the dollars will be in the bank, because she'll make that. She'll make sure that thing happens. See, you got to have that complementary piece. You know, you just can't keep moving. And I'm not trying to bring you into this, honey, but thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. I really do. So I have 5 brothers. I'm the oldest, which is a blessing. I lost one of my brothers about 6 years ago. 6 years ago. A lot of people know him as Billy Cathell McClearn. And I have a sister named Jeannie. And all of us are all entrepreneurs in our own right, which is really crazy, because my parents didn't really set out that. All they wanted out of life is their sons and daughters to be one step better than them. But what they're seeing is the 10, 11, 12, 13 steps because of what the foundation. So whenever I speak out in public, I speak in the school systems, I speak out in public, sales organizations, it's all about your foundation. It's all about, you can't build a house on rocky sand. You have to make some solid, some concrete to make it sit on something. So your ideas got to have some girth to them. Your money has to be available around the way. That's why Phil Allen is here. He's a banker. You got to go see Phil. Phil's going to make it happen. Yeah, Phil. So, and I say that because what we try to do sometimes make shortcuts. And I'm going to tell you there is no shortcuts. I can tell you this right now. I've been doing this a long time. And believe me, I've had a lot of bumps along the way. There's unbelievable, a lot of financial losses. When I say I've been rich and I've been poor, I mean this. And I know everybody's perspective is different, but it's been different for me. But I'm blessed that I kept on moving. So one of the things I share with people when I speak to them is that you must keep moving. Still water stinks. Time waits for nobody. So as soon as I lost, my father, before Donald Trump became Donald Trump, and God rest my father's soul, he died before Donald Trump was president because he'd probably die all over again. But before Donald Trump was president, my father used to call me Donald Trump.
Testing.
Parking tickets out the game. I got so many parking tickets to go make these things, so we ain't gonna get nobody else. None of the other boys who don't have scholarship did not get any car, new car anyway. They had to wait till their sophomore year. I got mine my freshman year.
So Rick, you said you was a Regal, right?
Yeah, Buick Regal.
I don't know if I heard it. Okay, Tricky Rick and
Yeah, Tricky Rick and a Regal. It's funny. I lost my thought a bit about that story, but it's funny how things work. And I was, like I said, I was a guinea pig kid. So they tried all these things out on me to see if they would work for my other brothers along the line. So I went through a lot. So what I would say to you is I got that car brand new. Somehow I lost that car. My folks paid for it. It was cash, but I lost it. It's gone. I mean, literally gone. I don't know what I did. It's just gone. One day it was gone. I went out. 2 days later, got another one, just like that. And my father comes like, son, I bought you a car. What the heck? This time it's my junior year. I always had the capability to bounce back. I had this cat-like mentality. I don't care. You can take anything from me. I don't care. You repo it. You take my house. I don't care what it is. I'm going to get something bigger and better. And that was my determination. But I learned from what I went through. So, yes, I got cars repoed. Yes, I lost homes. Not today. All because of what lessons learned. I've been through a lot. This town here, you guys don't know how good you guys got it. These black folks here, y'all doing it, man. Y'all doing it. Y'all could do better. That's why Sheila knows me, but she doesn't know me, right? She knows me as Rick, the computer guy, fighting board of estimates to get my contract through. But she never really knew what I did. And that is crazy. Until now, she's out of that business, and we've had time to sit down and dialogue. Now, oh, I wonder why you was there all the time fighting. What's the brother's name who used to fight for the MBE officers all the time, who passed away? Not Clay, the other gentleman. Jolivet. My main man. Helped me out immensely. Jolivet would be in there, I'll be right behind him while he do the talking. See, he knew what to say there. Because I'm not proper. I'm not proper. Because I think politics is really a tough thing. I would never want to be in that business. I don't know how anybody has the skin for that. It's just tough because they change the rule whenever they want to change the rules. You know what I mean? Everybody else can get rich and you can't. Everybody else can make a deal and you can't. So we all, Jolivet, guys like Jolivet and the other gentleman, because I know him as well, they fought. They fought for us. But in this town, you have the unique combination of a multitude of people, a good percentage of them making money, a good percentage of them, which a lot of places do not have that percentage. Their percentage is really less. And you have the political front people, mayors, women, city council presidents, controllers, mayors. Man, let me tell you something, what I did. I worked for Unisys. I came here, met Kurt Smoke. This is a true story, man. Wow. I said to myself then, you were successful in New York and you sold all to white people. Know what you do now? You do the same thing. Respect the black people and sell them the same way you sold to white people. And that is why I was successful. I didn't change my game. I didn't change my language. I didn't use ebonics because Kurt Smoke was in front of me. I did the same thing I did in front of the white people in New York is the same thing I did in front of the black people here. And that's where I got my respect from Kurt Smoke, Lawrence Bell, Martin O'Malley, Sheila Dixon, Kathy Pugh. I've been through them all. And it's not a game. You got to treat it as such. I've been, man, this has been a learning experience for me here in Baltimore. So let me go back to this story here. This is a quick one. So when I came here, my dentist was Dr. Davis, Dr. Billy Davis. He's a Q-dog. He passed away a couple of years as well. So his son, me and Mark were good friends. And they invite me down to Pier 6. Here I am, 1996. I'm like, Pier 6, okay. Well, Maxwell or somebody was there. He said, yeah, don't go into the thing. Just call me when you get down there. So I come down there. And, you know, you got the big phones now. You're using the big phone. Hey, where y'all at? Where y'all at? And they said, come over here. Walk on this side of the pier. I'm like, walk on this side of the pier? What the heck? So here I am. Now, I'm from New York. I don't care about this New York City, but I'm from New York. And very rarely do you see, unless you're in New York City and you're in Manhattan, you might see one or two, but you don't see like 20 black boat owners. You just don't see that. That's a rarity, right? In my world, it was a rarity. And my folks were, quote unquote, you might say, doing very well for themselves. But boating was not one. That was something for them. white folks, not us. Now I come to Baltimore, the dentist invites me down to his boat to watch Maxwell. I think it was Maxwell, I want to believe it. And I was hooked right there. If they can do it, I can do it. Let me figure it out. See, I tell my wife this. Boat owners only pay interest only. That's how they afford a boat. Because you can't afford a boat if you buy it regular. But you got to learn that from a white guy. Because me, I went out the first time and financed it. My number was $2,000 a month. He laughed at me because it was $350. And I said, how'd you do that? Well, because the boats don't depreciate.
You gotta say that. The interest only loan, because boats don't appreciate.
And that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable for me. That was a learning lesson. And from there, I just started taking notes from everybody I ran into. I am blessed because you guys know this. This is a cliquish town, right? Baltimore's cliquish. And for me to get in where I'm at, and these doors and these people that I've met, these folks here, I'm embraced by everybody. I'm blessed. Because when I first got here, I was really concerned. But Kirk Smoke opened a couple doors for me. Lawrence Bell opened a couple doors for me. Even Martin O'Malley in his whirlwind, he opened a couple doors for me. A lot of folks just opened doors. They saw that I was authentic. I was doing my thing, and I was providing a service. So IT is my number one business. That is what I do, is information technology. Second thing I do that I love to do is to impart knowledge and understanding. I'm 64 years old. I used to start my show off like this. My name is Rich McClearn. I am a black man. I'm 64 years old. At the time, I was 61, 62 years old. I'm here for one purpose, to share with you information. And I hope that I can bless one person, just one, with the information where instead of you taking a right like you normally would, you take a left. Instead of you going straight, you stop and think about it. That was my hope and my prayer with this thing of strength, courage, and wisdom, was that. So I do own a company called Big Rick Entertainment. If you know anything about that, we gave the Leandra Johnson concert at my church, Dream Life Worship Center, with Pastor Kenneth Robinson. He graciously let us use that. Leandra came there. Lesson learned. There's a perfect example. Babe, that's a perfect example. Lost money. Lost a ton of money. Lesson learned. That's why we haven't gave a concert yet at a church or even at my church yet until we get the right person doing the right show at the right time. Now, the reason why that was not successful, the main reason why we had to postpone it because of COVID, but it was a lesson learned. I even brought it back too early, to be honest with you. I should have waited another 6-5 months, and it probably would have been better. But I lost a ton of money. And everybody's looking at me like they thought I made money. I'm like, you can look in the crowd and say I didn't make money. And everything is not for money, but, you're in some businesses, you have to say, money is the key. I do a lot not for money, but that was a lesson learned. And my wife at the time, she wasn't even my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend. She was like, what the heck are you doing? And because I was still paying people, because I had to see what I did, because I lost them, the people I have to pay don't get paid. I got to pay those folks. My name is on that. That's my name. That's what I ride on. Big Rick, got to take care of his money, take care of his bills. Got to take care of my money. So Big Rick Entertainment does the concerts. Big Rick Entertainment does a big Leo Day party. I am a Leo on July 30th. I give it every year. It's well attended. Anywhere from 600 to 800 people come to this event. Last couple of years it's been up at Safari. I had it the first year when I was 60 years old. I ran out the whole Spirit of Baltimore. We sold that joker off. We had to leave people on land. The people was like, come on, come back. No, they couldn't come back. So Big Rick was born in that year. That's when I was 60, so 4 or 5 years ago it was born. Big Rick Entertainment was born. And since then, that company is doing well. My McClearn Group company is a consulting firm. I help minority companies understand what they need to understand. And it could be in any range. It could be that you're starting out, you want to write a business plan. Or you're already working and you want to break into a new market. Or I got a problem. I don't know why my cost is so high and why I'm not competitive in the bid process. I'm really a bid guy. I won a lot of bid contracts. So I know how to write proposals. I know how to look at a deal and make it happen where you can make money. The thing you got to look at, these people have been doing it so long, they know how to do it. We're new to the game, right? So they know how to get a contract, to see a contract, and they know where the really money lies. So let's say there's 20 line items right there, and they know that these 5 line items are the ones they're going to buy. You know what I mean? So those are the ones we're going to discount right. But the other ones, we know we don't care about it, so we're going to discount them real low, because we know they're never going to buy them. But no, we do, because we're new to the game. We're discounting the whole sheet the same rate, 10%, 10%, 10%. And all of a sudden you see some 10% and everything else is 4% because they know the 4% product that they're never going to buy because we've never been part of that game. So the game is still a game. It's no difference, you know. And we are street smart. One of the things I take pride in too, being raised in New York, is that even though I lived in the hood, you know, we did live in the hood initially. Anyway, until my folks started doing well. But they made sure that we stayed in contact with the hood. They made sure that we always engaged with our friends. Back in the day, the YMCA was a big thing back in the day. That's where we learned to swim. That's where we learned to play sports. That's where we learned to be friends with people, things of that nature. So they made sure when we did go out into the county that every weekend we came back into the city to engage. One thing I want to share with you that my folks shared with me that was powerful, and I would challenge any parent who can do it, do this. My folks made a decision when I was 10 years old, and I'm the oldest, that we want our kids, because my father was a really political activist, and he was like Martin Luther King with a little Malcolm, not big Malcolm, but a little Malcolm in him. And he was big in Newburgh. He was a pastor, a PK kid. That's another thing I forgot to say that. He said he wanted his kids to be diversified. And the only way he can do that is put them in a school system that was diversified. We didn't want you to know one culture. So here I am. I'm going from an all-black school, predominantly 99% black, and 10 years old, and he puts me smack dab in this all-white school. But it wasn't all white. It was Chinese, it was Korean, it was white. He wanted me to understand them now, because he knew I had to deal with them later. That was his speech to us. I want you to understand these cultures now. So when you get older, you know how to deal with them in the boardroom. You know how to talk to them. You know how to translate to them. You know how to get the commonality with them. So right now, it's the funniest thing in the world. One of my best friends in the world is a white boy named Bill Moran from high school. One of my best friends. We don't see each other every 10 years or so. That's my dog. He taught me a lot. He's the one that got me into golfing. When I was in high school, played basketball. He was my point guard. I was a forward. And he always would say, he was a scratch golfer in high school. Rick, I need you to come out and hit this ball with me, man. Come on out. I can tell you, if you didn't tell me 100 times, I never would touch that game. Never. Because I was culturally still shocked. Basketball, baseball, maybe football, baseball, basketball, football, and a little bit of baseball. But golf was not a sport for black men back then. It took me to 50 years old to finally pick up a golf club. And I love this sport. This sport is incredible. I wish I would have took it back then. But no, I was so still engaged in my old ways. Basketball and football is the only way I can do anything good. And now he sees me now, and we played like, 5, 6 years ago, and he couldn't believe it. He was just outdone. Because he knew I could probably play the sport good, right? And now he says, wow, man, Rick, I wish he would have took you up in high school. But this is what environments do for you, though. If you get your kids in a place where they're not all in one culture or one environment, and they get a taste of Chinese, Koreans, there's another thing, too. My wife knows this. I'm a very picky eater. I'm a hamburger man. I am a chicken parmesan man. I'm a ham and cheese sandwich guy. I'm just really straight, simple guy. You don't have to be a salmon cake. I'm good. Not no salmon cake. So, but what I'm saying that though, one of the things I wish I would have done, I did it on the intellectual side with those folks, but I never did it with the food. I am telling you something. There's something to be said about that. I've been in boardrooms now where where we have all these diverse cultures, and I get along with all of them. But the one place we don't get along is when we sit down and dine. And I wish I would have got that appetite then, because I can tell you now that I probably lost a bunch of deals not participating in that area because I limited myself. But I know it now. So if I talk to a business, a group of a college class that just graduated from business school, I would ask them to do that. Open your palate. Taste something you never tasted before. Do something you never did before. And you'll be blessed by it. You might not see it today. See, that's another thing too. We're a microwave society. We want to put something in and make money right away. And I'm telling you, anything that make money fast, like any girl that's fast or any guy that's fast, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. I'm a true believer of that. All I can say is that my upbringing has been diverse. We lived in a very religious household. Like I said, my father was a pastor, and we went to church 24/7. It felt like, but my father was a different type of pastor. The kind of pastor he was like, okay, guys, I know you guys. What I don't want to do is make you guys robots. What I want you to do is respect the Lord and come to church. So I don't care if you go out on Saturday night, but I do care that you go Sunday morning, you come to church. So you come in at 12 o'clock, your butt got to get up and go to church on Sunday morning. So he made sure we attended those services. And we're in his church all day Sunday, man, to YPHA, watch night, watching your feet, and all that kind of stuff. We did we're Pentecostal, Holiness Night, Holiness Church, shouting tambourines, all that good stuff was going on. But I am blessed. I want to say Baltimore has been good to me. Now, if I can say this honestly right now, that Baltimore is probably the best, and the biggest move I've ever made. I made a lot of moves in my lifetime, and I say this to you. That's why I said it earlier. Baltimore people are truly divine. I've never been to a place as welcoming, as warm. Yeah, you had cliques and all that. That's going to happen. Every town has that. But this town has something about it. And I think if we can embrace this something, which I don't know what that something is, if we can embrace this, we can make it better. Because you guys, we have leaders that need to be challenged. Brandon's my man, right? Brandon's my dude, right? But Brandon's got to be challenged. I hate to say it, that's my man. He just needs to be challenged. But guess what? Brandon's good because he's fresh and he's young. And he's got the legs for it. See, the only problem, and Sheila shared with you, that job is tiring, brother. Them people are working pretty much 24/7. They don't get a day off for the most part. They are working their butts off for people. They got to love it. I know Sheila loves this town. I can tell you that. I know Kurt Smoke loved this town. I know that Lawrence Bell, I wish he would have won. But here we go again. We fought against each other on that one, him and Carl, right? And then Martin snuck in, right? Ain't that what happened? That's the truth, right? That's what happened. That's how Martin got in. Lawrence and Carl fought against each other and split the vote. Don't make no sense, but it happened, right? And Martin's not a bad guy. I know him too as well. I want to say this in closing, that I can't really talk about motivation. So motivation to me is finding something that you love and finding something that you have a passion for and finding something that you understand. If you put those three together, I think all three of them got to be in there, because all three of them can wane. And if they don't have each other to pick you back on, they're gonna fall. You're gonna fall, right? Love, passion, and understand. So every business I've been in, I understood it. Every business I've been in, for the most part, I loved it. And for the most part, I had passion for it. So there's nothing I went into here and said, last but not least, this is a big one. Be honest with you, the businesses that have been the best for me are the ones where I didn't think I was going to get rich. It was the ones that I opened for love, passion, and understanding. And guess what came with it? Cash. Opportunity. Doors opening. Things of that nature. That is what happens, man. If you start thinking in those frames right there, like this sister back here, she came over and me and my wife were sitting there listening. I'm looking at her like, how does this lady know this stuff? You know what I mean? But she knows about the stars. She knows about astrology back in the day. She knows about honey and pure water and what the earth gives you. She understands that business. She's speaking her truth. And guess what? She loves it and she's passionate about it. And she's going to be successful. Because that's all you need. Now, success is relevant, right? Success is all relevant. It could be somebody makes a quarter. It could be somebody don't make nothing. It could be just like a thank God for keeping me alive and keep me going. It could be millions. It all depends on what you want. That's what life is, man. It's what it's about, what's going on then and now. So I say to you at parting, I want to say, I love my wife. I got to say that again. I love my wife. She is a dream. She's from Charleston, South Carolina, via Brooklyn, New York, and went down there for 20 years. And I ran into her at a Steve Harvey event over in Mexico. And I can tell you there's another thing too. So beware what you ask for, what you ask God for, because God will give it to you, whether you're ready or not. Because you couldn't tell me I'm here where I am today 2 years ago. You couldn't tell Rick that. Big Rick was living his life. Big Rick was doing Big Rick things. Phil and Neil, they know me. They know me personally. Yeah, but it's amazing when you meet somebody that's in the same, right here, and got your back. Got your back, yo. That's rare. And I say that to say, I am telling you, I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, or friend, get you a partner. Some things you cannot do on your own. Some things you cannot do on your own. You need assistance. I would ask everybody to get multiple streams of income. I'll tell you one thing I did real quick. There was a time when you did this electrical thing where you can buy this other thing besides BG&E. Let me tell you one of the things I did. This is crazy, but because it was just another thing I did, where I can join this electrical company, as long as I join and I join 10 other people, get them 10 other people to join, it would pay for my bill. So then my money stays with me. But the 10 other folks in the company were paying for my gas bill. But that was another stream of income for me, whether it was $250, $175. See, the amount doesn't make a difference. It's about what you do with the amount. So what that $275 took away from me was a BG&E bill. So now I can put the $275 over here and maybe buy my wife. I don't know what I can buy you for $275 right now, but you know what I mean. But I could use that for something else. Put it in a nest egg, start another business, everything. Another thing I'll say, and I'll say this in part, Mark, and thank you for this here. I tell you and I challenge you this, and Phil might agree with me or not, but I hope he does. All your ducks don't have to be in a row to get started. They just don't have to be in a row. Because if I would have waited for anything, man, I don't know where I would be. I moved a lot of times without things being in a row. Money, business plan, great idea, backing from people, all that stuff. No. Sometimes I moved on my gut, because your gut's the only thing you really got at the end of the day. And I'm telling you that a lot of people are holding themselves back because you're not utilizing your gut. I'm telling you, man, just do it. And let me tell you something. Nike didn't think of that. That was Famous Amos. Just Do It came from Famous Amos, the cookie guy. Not from Nike. Just do it. Thank you, Mark.
Big Rick in the building. I mean,